environment has a huge effect on genetic expression. When we're born, our genes are our starting point, but those genes have to be instructed and selected by our experiences and in the environment. And because children, for the first 6 to 7 years of their life, have no analytical mind, because their brain waves are very slow. They're highly programmable. All the information goes right into the subconscious unedited, and that becomes the foundation of who they become. A child is living in stress constantly every day. It becomes a familiar state for them. And if those emotions of stress are associated with caregivers, they'll have the wrong understanding about love. But we can reprogram ourselves throughout our entire life. You just have to understand how to do it. What is your definition of success? So what you're really saying is success is freedom. So everybody has their own understanding of success. The answer is not a simple answer. Everybody in the process of becoming successful has to overcome themselves in some way. They have to meet the challenges and conditions in their life, adapt to those challenges, change their behaviors in some way, learn and create a new level of mind, and begin to traverse the challenge, and to manage their emotions beyond their challenges. And when they do, they reach their goals. The people who then cannot get beyond their emotions, meet their life from the same level of mind every day, can't get beyond themselves, blame everyone and everything in their life for the reason they are the way they are. From a biological standpoint, there's no evolution. So people who get what they want and do it in an ethical way are actually living in the laws of the universe. They just don't know it. The quantum model of reality says that your mind, when it observes an electron, it causes waves of energy to collapse into a particle. That's called collapsing the wave function. It's a quantum event. If you take your attention off the electron, the observer takes its mind off of it, turns back into possibility. So most quantum physicists will say that that only works for the very tiny, for subatomic particles, not for the very large, like events in your life. But if you were to teach people to marry a clear intention, which is a mindful process, with an elevated emotion, and elevated energy, when you combine how you think and how you feel, you create a state of being. Now that state of being can exert greater influence on the external world. And now you can cause infinite waves of possibilities to collapse into an experience or a quantum event in your life. Now it may take a consistent level of observation and training to continuously observe what you want in your life instead of unconsciously preparing yourself for what you don't want in your life. Because most people keep their attention on the worst case scenario and they're experiencing that reality. Now this process isn't as simple as people think, because you have to break the habit of thinking, you have to break your emotional addiction to become aware of your unconscious action. That is the difficult part. So then when you are in an elevated emotion, from a quantum perspective, you're more energy and less matter. And when you're observing a future intention that has nothing to do with your past, you are in the unknown. And only when you're in the unknown can you create the unknown. If you're thinking and feeling the same way, you're in the known. And most people try to create the unknown from the known, and it's impossible. Well, this is a great question, because we were talking about this last night with a group of people. The thoughts that you believe are only equal to the feelings you experience. So if you live in fear, you'll only believe the thoughts equal to that emotion. If you live in guilt, you auto-suggest thoughts equal to guilt. You accept those thoughts, and you surrender to those without analysis. And that's the thought that begins to activate your bodily system, which causes you to feel more guilt, causes you to think more, and that is karma. So then, the antithesis is also true, that if you were to experience gratitude, then you would only accept thoughts equal to that feeling, possibility. So then the person who's living in fear and the person who's living in guilt will not accept any affirmation that isn't equal to the emotion of fear and guilt. The door's closed. So that's why affirmations don't work for a lot of people. They have to change their state of being. That's what our workshops are about. The hardest part about all of this, the hardest part, In all the years that I have been studying and teaching, the hardest part for most people is making the time to do it. Taking time for your precious self to eliminate the environment every day, to close your eyes and detach from your external world, to take your body and set it down and put it away so you no longer identify as a body, and to become so passionate about possibility that you forget about time. That is my definition of creation, is when I forget about myself, when I become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, no time. So everybody innately knows how to do this, but most people are so addicted to the problems in their life and the emotions that they create that they can't take their attention off their life long enough to create a new life. And so when people begin to get new knowledge, and they see people that are doing it, because the people in our workshops all over the world are doing the uncommon, they're doing the miraculous, they'll become inspired to do it themselves. So the creative state is a natural state of being. But when you're living in stress and you're living in survival, it's impossible to create. It's not a time to create. It's a time to run from a lion. So you're either in one of those two states, in stress or survival, in love with creation. Can't be in both at the same time. This spiritual intelligence is the quantum field. It's a field of information that exists beyond space and time. It's both within you and all around you. It's personal and universal. It's keeping your heart beating right now, digesting your breakfast. It's making 25 million cells every second. It's organizing 100,000 chemical reactions in one cell of your body in 1 second. It's inhaling 2 million liters of blood and distributing that oxygen to every cell of your body every second. It's giving you life. Can't see it, can't smell it, can't taste it, can't feel it, but is the very essence of life. Now that same intelligence that's giving you life is creating supernovas in distant galaxies. It's causing lilies to bloom in France. It's causing the planets to rotate around the sun. Now, when you emulate the divine, you are in a creative state. So then, when we begin to interact with this intelligence and we begin to cause effects in our life, then we are going from a human being living as material matter to a divine being living as energy and awareness and consciousness. And that intelligence begins to organize events in our lives in ways that we would never expect.
De formas que nunca lo esperaríamos.
That's the beauty of creation. And we begin to create unknown experiences that produce new and elevated emotion. And the energy of those emotions inspire us to create again. That's called evolution. I could talk for hours about the pineal gland. Pineal gland is the alchemical factory in the brain. The main function of it is to create two neurotransmitters, serotonin and melatonin. Serotonin is the daytime neurotransmitter. Melatonin is the nighttime neurotransmitter. It's the dreaming chemical. But the pineal gland can take the melatonin molecule with heightened states of energy and heightened states of consciousness and turn it into some very powerful neurotransmitters that cause the brain to become highly illuminated. The same chemical that's found in an electric eel, the phospholuminescence, lights the brain up with energy. The same chemical that causes people to hallucinate and see visions, removes the veil of this world. Very powerful antioxidants. The strongest antioxidant known to man comes from the pineal gland. Anti-cancer, anti-aging, anti-heart disease, anti-neurodegeneration, anti-fungus or antibacterial. That's made from the pineal gland. And the same chemical that's found in hibernating animals that lose their drives to cause the body to go into stasis.
Yeah.
Hunger, no sex drive, to repair. And they go on. Many more neurotransmitters. So then you can activate that pineal gland by changing states of mind. And it begins to make chemicals to begin to remove the veil or the illusion of this world. And we do techniques in our workshops, advanced workshops. That's the short answer. What's your definition of the soul? The soul exists here, right next to the heart. The pineal gland is more like the door between dimensions. It is the connection to higher levels of consciousness. So once you begin to experience yourself as a dimensional being, then the mystery of the soul is revealed. Well, compassion is when you see yourself in others. Compassion is when you consider the whole when you make a choice. Compassion is when you take the high road, straight love and caring, when everybody else is judging and hostile. I believe that compassion is a step towards the understanding that all is one, which is the ultimate law. So compassion is a lot like caring. It's a lot like understanding. It's a lot like giving love. It's an elevated state of being. The only way that you could actually love the world is when you truly love yourself. When you overcome some aspect of yourself and you take those survival emotions, the stress emotions, anger, hostility, fear, insecurity, unworthiness, pain, suffering, guilt, transmute those into elevated emotions. On a personal level, you overcome yourself in some way. You go from selfish to selfless. Heart begins to open and you feel connected to something greater. In those moments, it's impossible to judge because you feel so whole that the moment you judge, you will lose the feeling. So you weigh the feeling of wholeness in its state of mind of judgment, and you never trade this for that. So when you look at someone from the state of mind, you see yourself. You see who you used to be.
También te ves cómo eras tú antes.
You've grown up. And you see the child who's suffering in some way, hasn't understood there's a greater way of being. So you give, you serve, you take care of, you're present, because the divine in you is alive in that moment. But only when we overcome ourselves does that emotion happen. So we change the world by changing ourselves. We're in an age of information. And because information is available, there's no longer the expert and the authority and the average person. Because of that, all the paradigms are breaking down. The environment, political model, the economic model, medical model, the religious model, the educational model, they're all breaking down because people have access to information. So this is a very important time in history because most of those paradigms were built on survival emotion, competition, importance, control, greed, fear, deception. All of those models were built on a limited state. It's not part of our future. They have to collapse. So then the question really is, if the veil is thinning and people are becoming more aware, then we can't keep doing the same things, expect a different result. How do you become supernatural? You have to stop doing what's natural. When everybody else is in lack, that's the time to give. When everybody else is judging, that's the time to show compassion. When everybody else is competing, that's the time to trust, relax into possibilities. And if we keep doing this, what was once unnatural becomes natural. So there is a collective consciousness emerging where people want to know the truth and they don't want to live in those emotions any longer. And unfortunately, it just takes us becoming so uncomfortable that we finally say enough and we take our power back. So it used to be at one point, 20% of the population believed in this. 5 years ago, it may have been 40%. Now, I bet it's over 50%. The majority is waking up, and it's a great time to be alive.